Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Simon Archer and Scott Houston. Simon is co-founder and director of innovation at PolicyCheck, a SaaS platform bringing AI-powered clarity to the murky world of insurance policies. And Scott is an advisor and mentor to the PolicyCheck team. Scott's a seasoned tech leader and entrepreneur in New Zealand, currently CTO at Arcanum AI, and known for founding Green Button, which was acquired by Microsoft, and also building Weta Digital's supercomputer platform for Lord of the Rings. That's quite the mouthful there, Scott. But welcome, Simon and Scott.
Thanks for having us, Mike. Scott's got a bit of a longer intro than me, that's for sure.
Plenty to draw on there. So Simon, tell us a bit more. What pulled you into the AI space?
Look, I'm a builder, Mike. I can't resist when I see a problem. And I spent my early career with a saying, never again. And that was when I was stuck doing those tasks, which were really, really repetitive early in my career. And when I sat down with, a broker and they walked me through the process, it was unfathomable. How could people be doing what they're doing today when AI is around? And some quick experimentation later and then a bit of strategy. We figured, hey, look, if you've got an industry globally that needs disrupting, it's probably insurance. If you're looking for the biggest pool of unstructured data, it's probably in insurance. And if you're looking for an industry that's sells their products with conversations, it's insurance brokers. And so the layers of the Venn diagram kept stacking up. And with the experiments and the validation from that AI could potentially do something here, we got really excited and
Awesome. It feels like, document-heavy workflows really collapse under the weight of AI. I mean, if you've got NLP tools that summarize hundreds of pages of policy and contracts and in terms and seconds and really flag those critical clauses and provide instant updates, then why would you not attack an industry like that or find an opportunity for kind of, lower touch, high margin offerings? It's sort of ripe for disruption, isn't it?
It's, the last year in Australia and New Zealand, $2.8 billion of claims went denied. Claims went denied by the insurers because, largely, we're claiming for things that we're not covered for. We just don't understand. There's just too much documentation for the insurers, too much for the brokers, and too much for us. And of course, AI is doing a great job at helping us to articulate and understand a lot of data. It's getting better at PDFs and it's getting better at insurance. And we're excited to be leading the charge in that space.
Awesome. Well, we'll dive into some bolts of PolicyCheck in a second. But Scott, over to yourself. What pulled you into AI and what's your journey been like today?
Yeah, so many moons ago, I was the CTO of Weta Digital and we had some leftover capacity. So I formed the New Zealand Supercomputer Centre back in 2007. And from there, developed a concept called Green Button, which was a cloud orchestration tool. We sold the company back in 2014 to Microsoft, and I retired. I bought a set of golf clubs and a fishing rod, and it turns out I'm not very good at either of those things. So I actually joined a company called Sequent in Christchurch, which was a software company in the geosciences and the geotech world. And then that company got acquired in 2018, and I thought, I don't want to manage software teams anymore. I don't want to be a CTO anymore. I want to do something completely different and write a book, a fictional novel, about an AI that becomes sentient. So I started that journey in 2018 and really when I talk to people about AI and actually the rights of an AI, so really the story is a fictional story of an agent and it's really a story of emancipation. But when I talked to people back in 2018, they said AI was really just about Skynet and Terminators would conquer the world. And the rationale to get to artificial general intelligence was to, at that stage in 2018, we were mirroring worm brains to create the same number of neurons and synapses. The journey's evolved a long way, but I realized that I couldn't learn just looking at Google and reading books. So I decided to learn vicariously, and I've been working with AI companies ever since. So I love what's happening in AI. I've finally finished my book, and I'm still learning. And artificial general intelligence is probably closer than I thought in 2018, but I'm really excited with the direction that agentic AI is taking, and Simon and I are spending a lot of time thinking and strategizing for that.
Awesome. So you think AGI is closer than we think, Scott? Would love your perspective on what's changed over the kind of last couple of years, perhaps, since Gen AI has exploded that might have driven you closer to that? Or am I reading between the lines there?
I think our perspective of AGI has changed. And a couple of years ago, I was watching an interview with Sam Altman when he was asked whether ChatGPT was sentient, and he said no. But he couldn't rule out the possibility of its ability to reason. And I think when we think, and there's still no measurement today after all this time of artificial general intelligence. And when that does happen, what rights would it have? But whatever singularity moment that is, it's probably not what we think. It won't be a human level. It will be a human level interaction, but it may not be a human level thought process or emotive process. So that moment of I think, therefore I am, is happening, but it might not be what we originally thought it would actually be, which would be a human level set of emotions and awareness. In fact, perhaps awareness is going to be less likely. Although with an infinite amount of information and knowledge, it's certainly going to happen faster than we think.
And before we
have to come up with some new terms, aren't we, right? Because we just don't have terms to explain how some of these things might evolve. Sorry, Mike.
No, it's fascinating to think through. And do you see the dialogue around what AGI is kind of shifting in conversations with other leaders within the space in New Zealand particularly? Or is this more of like an overseas conversation or global conversation that you're hearing this type of discussion?
I think it's more of a global conversation. I mean, there's some really interesting observations. There's some really interesting predictions that we might see AI before 2030. I think it's less likely, and AI has just gone through these waves of sort of innovations and then pauses and then winters. The AI winters have been going since the 1940s, if you like. But we're certainly closer than we ever were. I fear that the control mechanism to control AGI is probably too far away, and no one will agree. And the amount of money that's been spent, on data centers alone for single models is just not going to stop.
It's proliferating at a pace that we can't keep up with for sure.
And nation states won't. So AI dominance will become a weapon if it's not already.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. And I guess you mentioned agentic AI before, and Simon, in terms of agentic AI, how are you thinking about that process, that innovation, that build out for PolicyCheck and the problems you're looking to solve?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great innovation, right? We could, to use a technical term, we could do a lot of hard coding and we could do a lot of software engineering, kind of get our product to meet the experience that we're trying to deliver. Or we could, leverage agentic AI. And, there's an element of when and how. You adopt it too early, and that can cause more challenges than it's worth. So the timing and the implementation, I think a lot of thought needs to go into that. But the early prototype that we've got is very promising. And if we can deliver on that, it's going to definitely speed up our go-to-market, that's for sure.
And how do you balance? Oh, Scott, go for it.
Yeah, and if you think about insurance and brokers as we stand today, it's very reactive. You give your insurance, every year your insurance broker calls you and asks you if you want to renew your insurance, or you buy a new home or a motor vehicle and you want to get new insurance. But it's very reactive, and we see the opportunity for agentic AI to be more interactive and enable the brokers to be more interactive. And so the ability to really understand the context and the timing and the ability to prompt the brokers to contact myself to say, hey, did you know the regulations have changed? Some of the compliance issues have changed. Or there's a big storm on the way and your insurance cover does not cover that at the moment. Would you like to relook at that or reinsure your property for either a different value or a different set of risks? So this gives the broker the ability to really engage directly with the client on almost a real-time basis, depending on the circumstances and the change of regulations.
It's almost like compliance is becoming, as you say, real-time, productized as a service. Is it compliance as a service with AI continuously monitoring policies, agreements, public statements about regulatory changes, as you say, the weather and other variables? And that means that violations can be flagged early. You can reduce areas that you might miss that your personalized circumstances require oversight of. And of course, on the insurer's side, you've got a reduction in fines and lawsuits and brand damage as a result. So it benefits both sides of the aisle in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, the process today is pretty blunt. There's not much personalisation, particularly at the, let's call it the high volume, low margin end of the market where you might be a home insurance or, whatnot. And so as we look at using AI, whether it's agentic or generative and what we're building, it's all about how can we leverage the context of that particular situation to find the best solution, come up with a great way to help, at the end of the day, a policyholder really understand what risk they're mitigating by taking that insurance. So, i.e., what are they covered for? And more importantly, what are they not covered for? And so today, that answer is relatively the same for a lot of different situations. And so, because it's just too hard to run through all of the paperwork and do everything 5 times and go find the best options and do all these different things, because there's so much data that needs to be looked at and context that needs to be understood, particularly as you move up the spectrum to businesses and commercial insurance. It gets a hell of a lot more complicated. And you do see brokers spending a lot of time personalizing those offers, but it still takes a lot of effort. And so what we're trying to do is use these tools to get better service for policyholders at the end of the day.
It sounds like risk management is shifting from like a rear view perspective or historical to more predictive, because the AI could identify gaps in coverage or policy mismatches or non-compliance before I guess it's too late, because as you say, there are a lot of claims that aren't approved because the policy wasn't well paired with the individual and their circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I'd go as far as to say that maybe there could be more variety out there in terms of products from the insurers themselves as well. And so it's an interesting value chain, to say the least, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does it actually work? How does AI play a role as part of what you're doing specifically? Like, can you walk us through that workflow?
Yeah, look, I'll just bring it back to the 3 problems that we're solving, Mike. And the first one is admin. There's just way too much admin time. The second one is brokers aren't able to compare as many options as you'd think and as you'd like. And then some brokers do a really good job at communicating the policy, but some might need some help. And so how can we use AI to solve those 3 problems? There's way too much made too much admin. Up to 90% of their day, of their week, is in administration stuff, not actually spending time with their client. And so and they're still not doing the best policy comparisons and research that they could be doing. And they're still not, as a general statement, they still struggle to communicate to clients what they're actually covered for. And so they're the 3 problems. And AI obviously does a lot of the heavy lifting. We can break that down and we can talk specifically about that. But it also obviously does the instant comparisons, and it can really do a great job of helping you to understand what you're covered for as well. Nobody wants to read 1,000 terms and understand all of the nuances. So how do you personalize the communication for what's relevant and for what's for that particular situation and that particular person? So we're trying to flip an industry which is full of admin and paperwork to something which is in a trust-based industry, conversational, relational, and very much insights-driven to get the best solutions for policyholders.
Okay, you can sympathize there. Insurance, it's riddled with complex language, having just gone through this process, right? So how do you think about training PolicyCheck's models to make sense of it, right? There's a lot of technical and regulatory jargon involved in this whole entire process.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't fully appreciate how varied the documents are, how they're structured and the nuances and whatnot. I think the short answer is you need a lot of data and you need to do a lot of experimentation. And when you're done, you're not done, because new models come out, new approaches come out. It's a constant evolution of who we are. It's actually in our DNA. And I think that people often go to the tech and what have you done here and what have you done there, and try to understand the solution. And a month later, the solution is a bit better, slightly different. And so it's in our DNA in a sense that we're doing the best job that we can to understand these policies so that brokers and policyholders can buy insurance with confidence.
Sounds like a bit of a zero moment. I think I've seen talked about before for PolicyCheck coming to market. Shifting from old workflows to new workflows in some way, shape, or form. Well, those workflows almost become invisible, right?
Yeah, and I think the early adopters are going to be the smaller brokers. So they want to move fast. Their point of differentiation is being nimble, being able to engage directly with their customers. So if they're able to, either through time saving, provide a better experience to their clients, or be less reactive and more proactive in terms of what issues are the clients likely to face, what are the new opportunities, what has changed in the regulation, they're going to grab it because that's going to be a key point of differentiation. And so they want to move fast, and they want to demonstrate that they can provide a better level of service to their clients through their understanding and through the use of these tools. So some of the frustrations we hear is it's taking weeks for the broker to get back, and that if through the set of tools that we've created they can engage almost interactively with them, or at least within hours, that's a game changer and a key point of competitiveness for them.
So, and it touches on a really important point there, Scott. AI has created this democratization of access to tools and technology in different ways. So you've got bigger businesses which might struggle to adopt some of these technologies and change because of apathy, or this is the way we've always done it type of mindset. You've got the smaller businesses which will pick up on these new innovations rapidly, and they'll start to nibble away at the market share. But do you think they'll ever significantly eat away at that market share, or do you think that the pieces on the chessboard will sort of stay as they are over time, as all parts of the market will adopt AI in different shapes and forms?
I think the larger multinationals are constrained by head office, by SOC 2 compliance, through interaction with other ERP systems and everything else, and that just takes time. And so what we're actually starting to see some of the larger ones go, hey, listen, we want to do a pilot with you guys. We want to test this out. We actually just want to learn about it. They'll still take a longer time, but there's no reason that the tools that we create are not going to be relevant for these large multinationals. But the key point today are our customers today that are going, well, this meets everything that we need today, but we want to join you on the journey to build a better experience for our customers. And I think in a general sense, from an AI perspective, we will see disruption by some of the existing multinationals, market leaders, by smaller disruptive companies that offer a better level of service. So yeah, it's game on, really. We'll work with both, but the reality is our most likely first movers are going to be the small to medium brokers. And the evolution of the tools that we have and the models may yet mean that we can provide a better level of service to the multinationals than it will take them to build it. And so it becomes a buy versus build decision maybe in a year or two's time.
Yeah, it puts you in a very strong position of power and with a lot of leverage at that point. And you're focused on the New Zealand and Australian market, if I'm not mistaken. Do you see risk of new entrants into the market from overseas competitors potentially building a similar type of product for other jurisdictions?
It is a global market. I mean, the incumbents out there are global players, and it's a big industry. There's a lot of opportunity, and there will be new players into the market that have different takes on it. But at the end of the day, what we're focused on is at least to start with, is small businesses, and their needs when it comes to managing risk are the same. And so, yes, there's jurisdictions. Every geography has different challenges, and more importantly, has different insurers on the back end when it comes to products and quoting, and some challenges on the back end. But from the experience that we're building for insurance brokers and their clients is all about helping them to understand insurance, which is a universally, understood or misunderstood product. And so, yeah, Australia and New Zealand, you got to focus on that, but we're not stopping there, that's for sure.
And it's a pretty large market as it stands anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see the application into other areas, mortgage broking and the likes, or are you willing to kind of stick to a vertical, so to speak, in insurance and just continue to grow in that space over the long term?
Look, I think we've showed you the product, and you've seen you get the feedback from the brokers. I mean, if we don't get to it, in time, someone else will do a very similar thing for mortgage brokers, and they'll specialize in that, and they'll dominate in that. brokers at the end of the day, whether they're mortgage brokers or insurance brokers or financial advisors, they are staring down the barrel of potential irrelevance and AI cutting their lunch. And so we've made a very distinct kind of play here to build for the brokers, not to disrupt the brokers. And the product that we've built could move into those adjacencies, that's for sure. And we'd love to do that. If we had that product today for mortgage brokers, we'd be cleaning up and leading the market. So definitely there are adjacencies with what we're doing, but we're focused on insurance brokers and small businesses and making sure that they understand what they're covered for and they've got the best cover.
I think a danger for a startup and an early stage company is losing your focus.
Scott's always telling me, Mike, he's always de-scope that.
Just go back and own that market, and the insurance brokers is big enough, and then we'll talk about some other sectors. So, I think there's plenty of opportunities, but there's enough market just within the insurance brokers at the moment to disrupt.
There's niches within insurance, right, that you could still dominate and retire handsomely.
Well, and once you've shown that your product works in one particular vertical, and it's a lot easier to raise capital and grow into another sector when you've proved the model works and you have product market fit.
And you're solving for a true problem at the end of the day, but I do want to ask, how have you found building with AI in a new kind of market? Like, this is a new space for a lot of organizations, people, partners, all that sort of stuff. Like, AI can be thrown around as a buzzword, but with some real kind of weight behind it too. But how are you finding building in this space in such a new technological revolution?
Mike, we showed an early prototype to someone and they started yelling at us because we had just completely automated the process. And they said, what's my role? And so, we've come a long way since then, and we've been able to kind of what we believe is balance the way that things are done today with this new technology, which it's great and innovative, but it doesn't come with the same structure and process and checks and balances that the insurance brokers are used to, but more importantly, their requirements from a regulatory perspective as well. So we're balancing the unstructured, unknown context kind of conversation with what is the process that insurance brokers need to go through from a best practice, and how can we kind of bring both worlds into the conversation so that yes, I can sit down with you and we can record our conversation, and AI can prompt me and we can have a chat, but when I get back to my desk, the 20-step compliant process is all filled out. And so it's less data entry and whatnot, but I've still got the process, I've still got the checks, I've still got a activity that I need to do, but that activity is now a higher order activity where I am generally focused on the things that are going to make the most value for the client. But I've still got a system, I can see everything, it looks similar to how I do things today to an extent. And so balancing both worlds has been key to kind of avoiding that situation where insurance brokers start yelling at us for disrupting the industry, because that's not our mission.
The broker will always be the human in the loop, so we can make them more productive. And in the short term, save time and make them more productive. In the longer term, we can generate more income by creating this opportunity for interactivity for the customer, and give the opportunity for the broker to not once a year contact their customer, but on a regular basis, update them, have a conversation with them, build a relationship, and really become the trusted advisor for their insurance risks.
I think at the end of the day, right, the traditional competitive moats are breaking down because of this technology in all industries. Legacy firms would have relied on expertise, headcount, proprietary documentation or templates, and regulatory muscle, I guess, to an extent. And AI levels that playing field by productizing expertise and offering it at a fraction of the cost. So we'll just continue to see that, call it a Cambrian explosion of more vertical startups, vertical sort of AI startups. I was going to say SaaS there for a second, but targeting different slices of those industries, and there'll be the riches will be in the niches at the end of the day.
It wasn't long ago that I was just advising the people that I work with, and myself was building the moats, patenting your IP, developing IP, and with just the regular advances with IP development and the investment that the major players are making in models, The point of differentiation won't be some sort of protectable patent. It will be how quickly you can build a solution, how easy it is to swap in and out a different model, how agents are going to communicate amongst themselves and with their clients' agents potentially in the future is going to be the key point of differentiation. So intellectual property will probably be the domain of the Amazons and the Googles and the open AIs. The entrepreneur brings all of that together and it's a best of breed to deliver that to their customer today, and it works.
So, and I suppose just on that point, you've been able to spin up PolicyCheck and you've been able to validate the platform. What's to stop someone else in this market spinning up a kind of Me Too product in quick succession? Like, where is the moat in this particular market for you?
Yeah, a common question. Look, it comes down to, a couple of key things. And the first one is that this industry is built on data. If you don't have the data, you're out. It's also built on relationships, and it's built on, trust, and it's built on the ability to go all in. And we see a lot of widget players coming along and saying, oh, we've got a little better comparison check thing, or we've got a great way to store your documents, or we've got a little conversational AI thing. Some of those technologies are great, but when it comes to adoption, I think that's something that we're investing into significantly. And you've got to build with brokers, for brokers. It's not something you can spin up overnight. You've got to be in the trenches with them, given it's such a complex process that is regulatory kind of checked and understood. And you're not going to get the trust from brokers or from the industry, overnight. That's something that you need to develop. So our moat is just as much in the access to the data and the partnerships that we have as it is about, just the muscle memory that we're building up with the brokers themselves.
Yeah, and speed to market. The product's there, it's working. Why would you adopt it today? I think that's going to become one of the key differentiators, Mike.
Absolutely. And there's something you touched on there in particular, Simon, around adoption. At the end of the day, AI is a technology, and with any good technology, there's change management that comes with it. And if you're selling a product, you still have to drive a change management agenda internally, because you are fundamentally changing the way the business operates for its processes. And as you say, speed is going to be kind of number one to get ahead of that, because others will come into the market. But if you've got your moat in other areas with data and relationships, then you're in a pretty good position there. I suppose, what advice would you have for other Kiwi founders who are building AI tools for legacy industries? You've talked about a couple of points, but anything else that comes to mind?
You're not building a SaaS company, right? I mean, you're building a SaaS company, build a bit of software, and then it may or may not change for the next 5 years, right? And you get a whole heap of legacy tech debt and, the challenges, and you have to rewrite it and all this kind of stuff. An AI first company is something that is evolving, at rapid pace. And I think that would be the key thing. AI writes code a lot faster than previously. So you've got that capital efficiency and that acceleration, but you've actually got to put a lot more thinking into the design of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And so it's like that whole move from the SDLC kind of software development process to Agile. Everyone thought, oh, Agile is great, let's just get on with it. And no planning necessary. What we actually found over a couple of years was actually more planning was required, because more things were happening at a lot higher velocity. And so I think I'd come back to the mindset that you have when you are thinking about building an AI first company. You've got to drop that SaaS mindset of building some software that's and avoiding some of those traps, and actually spending more time thinking up front about the design, the approach, not just from a technology, but from a people perspective. How are you going to build a capability that is going to evolve and stay ahead? Because we've got the tools. So we're only limited by, what we can bring to the table in terms of our intellect and creativity.
And partner. We're not going to reinvent a giant new LLM, but there are some great Kiwi startups that are doing really good things with AI. And if they've already done it and solved the problem, then use it.
Absolutely.
Build that into your product and move faster.
Awesome. And sort of zooming out, what do you think might be a missing ingredient in the New Zealand AI ecosystem, in particular for fintechs or insurance companies? What would you be looking for from the government, from industry, from other?
I think you're doing a great job, Mike. Community is key. I don't know how valid this point of view is. I don't know if it's true. I arrived in New Zealand after the fact, but we here in New Zealand, pioneered, there's two programming languages in AI, right? One of them being Python and one of them being R. We pioneered R here in New Zealand, and yet we don't talk about that. There's no community that's kind of been able to kind of push that along for many, many years. All that talent, I can only assume, went overseas and didn't come back. And so this podcast is great. Let's get talking, let's get together and build a community around AI. We don't have to build the next LLM, but there's plenty of problems that we can solve that have a real impact on Kiwis' lives. And, all of those claims in insurance, that's a problem that we think is worth solving. So yeah, definitely. If you're out there with, some AI enthusiasm or experience, we'd love to hear from you and build the future. We're making a practical difference with AI in New Zealand.
Yeah, and a real bugbear of mine for the government is the government has done a wonderful job, and they're very helpful to me in funding the development of my product, the marketing of the product, but they simply wouldn't buy it. And so many software vendors have said, look, great, you've helped fund our product and help us sell it overseas, but you haven't bought our darn product. And the government needs to be walking the talk. They've freely acknowledged the importance of AI and the opportunity we have in the world. And the biggest thing that the government can do is buy the products from our local developers here, from our local AI companies. And so the government needs to walk the talk on this one. And I'm sure other companies will be saying the same thing. And that's the easiest, most powerful way the government can demonstrate, one, their adoption of AI, but two, their support of AI companies here in New Zealand.
Really well said. Great way to end it. And before we do close up, we'd love to do a quick fire round, which I'll give you the question. Simon, over to you. Then Scott, would love your answer after as well.
Sure.
All right, let's hit it. Okay. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
I have to go Grok 4 and disrupt the question.
You love the unhinged nature of it, do you?
I'm looking forward. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm looking forward to trying it.
Awesome. Scott?
At the moment, Claude for me, but whatever model suits the best purpose, and there'll always be a better model.
Love it, love it. And Simon, most overhyped AI trend right now?
Data centers.
Data centers. Scott, what about yourself?
I'm astounded. Having set up the New Zealand Supercomputer Centre, the second largest computing centre in the world back in 2005, using Weta's leftover computers, the idea of spending $100 billion on a data centre to build one model, one interests me, but there's been so many conversations about building data centres in New Zealand, I just don't think we have the pockets deep enough to justify that.
Makes sense. Open source models or closed? Simon?
Oh, of course, open source.
Scott?
Yeah, probably both, but I wouldn't rule out building our insurance model at some stage in the future.
Place for both is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Simon, one New Zealand company quietly doing great AI work.
Well, obviously PolicyCheck, but I have to shout out to Arcanum as well. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. If you checked out their small business tool set, it's going to be really helpful for small businesses in New Zealand and hopefully globally.
Awesome, Scott.
Yeah, I can't think of one PolicyCheck, Arcanum. I'm also on the board of Fingermark, and have been working with Montu in the past. And I love what JD's doing with AutoHive as well. So, but there's some really cool companies here.
It's great. Everyone's super supportive of each other as well, which is good to see. And Simon, what's your number one recommendation for people to get started in AI?
Give me a call. Get started. There's, particularly if you like learning, you'll have a ball.
Excellent. And Scott?
Read my book. It's called Data. You see that?
Yep.
I've self-published it. My garage is full of books, and my wife just wants me to give them away now. It's a fun read, and if anyone's interested, they can contact me through LinkedIn, and I'll send them a free copy.
Good stuff. Well, thank you to both Simon and Scott for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for more episodes each week and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Thanks for tuning into the AI Corner.